What happens when Europe's broken post-war conscience finds expression through shadows and silence? When guilt becomes a melody and betrayal a mirror? These 12 noir-inspired thrillers expose the continent's darker truths. They merge beauty with fear, justice with decay, and love with treachery. From fog-drenched streets to moral labyrinths, they reveal how cinema became confession. Let's descend into 12 haunting European masterpieces you can stream free right now. Number 12. The Third Man, 1949. Few films have defined cinematic noir the way The Third Man did. Emerging from the rubble of post-war Vienna, it was more than a thriller. It was a moral autopsy of a world broken by victory. The film followed pulp novelist Holly Martins, played by Joseph Cotten, as he arrives in the occupied city, searching for his vanished friend Harry Lime, portrayed by Orson Welles. What he finds is corruption, not camaraderie. Shadows stretch longer than trust. The city itself becomes a character. Crumbling sewers, echoing secrets, while black markets thrive beneath the ruins. Director Carol Reed filmed amid real, bombed-out streets, capturing the unease of a civilization rebuilding on moral rot. Anton Karas's eerie zither score became a cultural ghost forever, tied to the image of Lime's sly grin beneath the Ferris wheel. Governments worried the film painted Allied occupation as decadent and lawless, yet that honesty gave it power. Behind the scenes, Welles refused the sewer chute, forcing a double to wade through icy filth. But when Welles finally appeared, his charm made evil irresistible. Critics hailed it as the ultimate post-war parable of decay and disillusion. Its closing shot, Elida Valley walking past Cotton in silent contempt, remains cinema's purest expression of heartbreak and consequence. A story where good intentions drown in shadow and friendship rots in the glow of victory. Number 11. Elevator to the Gallows, 1958. In France, noir wasn't just reborn, it started to dream. Elevator to the Gallows marked Louis Malle's explosive debut and turned Jean Moreau into a symbol of doomed elegance. The story unfolds like a nightmare that refuses to end. A man kills his boss to be with his lover, but a forgotten detail traps him between floors while fate unravels every perfect plan. Rain-slick streets pulse with Miles Davis's trumpet recorded live as the film played. His music became the voice of guilt, lonely, seductive, eternal. Mal shot with handheld cameras and natural light, giving Paris the texture of regret. The city feels alive yet dying, whispering of choices too late to undo. Censors hesitated, calling it too immoral, too detached. Yet the French public saw something electric. Critics praised its rhythm, its daring, its refusal to moralize. Behind the lens, Mal clashed with producers over its bleak ending, insisting tragedy was truth. When it premiered, it became a turning point between old noir and the French New Wave. It inspired Godard and Truffaut to shatter tradition. Moreau's lost expression beneath flickering neon became cinema's eternal image of guilt wandering aimlessly through love's aftermath. A perfect crime dissolved by jazz and destiny, where beauty itself became the accomplice. Number 10. Le Samurai, 1967. If Elevator to the Gallows created the mood, Le Samurai gave it discipline. Jean-Pierre Melville's precision-crafted noir stripped the genre to bone and ritual. Alain Delon plays Jeff Costello, a contract killer who moves through Paris like a ghost following a code only he understands. Every gesture is calculated, every silence deafening. The film opens with one of the coldest lines in cinema. There is no greater solitude than that of the samurai unless it is that of the tiger in the jungle. The world of Delon's hitman is one of order collapsing into chaos. His apartment, a single bird, his only companion, becomes a metaphor for captivity in purity. Police condemned it for glamorizing crime. Critics at first called it detached, even empty. But its emptiness was its genius, a reflection of postmodern loneliness. Melville designed the film like a Zen painting, colorless, precise, devoid of warmth. Behind the scenes, Delon refused to socialize during filming, speaking only when the camera rolled. His performance was mechanical, yet haunting, a human reduced to code. Over time, it influenced generations from John Woo to Jim Jarmusch and Nicholas Winding Refn. It transformed noir from smoky confession into philosophical ritual. Le Samurai remains the silence after violence, the calm before morality dies, a film where emotion is a wound too sacred to touch. Number 9. The Testament of Dr. Mabuse, 1933. Before film noir had a name, it already had a prophet. Fritz Lang's The Testament of Dr. Mabuse was born in the dying light of the Weimar Republic and banned within days of its release by the Nazi regime. They claimed it was a threat to public order. In truth, it was a mirror they feared to face. The film tells of a criminal mastermind confined in an asylum whose will somehow continues to command an underground empire of terror. His power is invisible, his influence contagious. Lang used ghostly double exposures and sound montages to create a sense of unseen authority long before the term psychological warfare existed. Behind the camera, the tension was suffocating. The Nazis were rising, and Lang's Jewish heritage made his success dangerous. When propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels privately summoned him and offered control of German cinema, Lang fled that night, leaving his country forever. The film disappeared, then resurfaced years later in censored form. Its depiction of crime as a metaphysical disease inspired everything from The Third Man to modern espionage thrillers. Dr. Mabuse warned that evil doesn't need armies to rule, only belief and fear. In its flickering images, the small 20th century saw its reflection, a society hypnotized by power and haunted by its own obedience. Number 8. The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, 1965. Bleak, cynical, and unforgettable, this British masterpiece turned Cold War paranoia into poetry. Based on John le Carré's novel, it starred Richard Burton as Alec Liemas, a burned-out spy sent on one last mission that becomes his moral funeral. Gone were the gadgets and glamour of Bond. Here, the shadows were damp, real, and suffocating. Director Martin Ritt shot it in stark monochrome, turning Berlin into a chessboard of betrayal. Every word dripped with exhaustion. Every silence carried the weight of a dying ideology. Burton's weary face became the symbol of disillusioned patriotism, a man who realizes he is expendable in a game without honor. The film's honesty alarmed British intelligence, who feared it might reveal tradecraft details and harm recruitment. Ritt ignored warnings, insisting truth mattered more than propaganda. Burton later said it was the only role that ever frightened him, because it felt too close to reality. Critics hailed it as the anti-spy film that redefined espionage cinema forever. It won multiple awards and set the tone for decades of political thrillers. The Spy Who Came In From the Cold remains a masterpiece of restraint, a reminder that patriotism can be the cruelest lie, and that the darkest prisons are built inside the mind. Number 7. The Conformist, 1970. If noir is about guilt, then The Conformist is its confession. Bernardo Bertolucci's political thriller transformed fascism into a fever dream. Jean-Louis Trintignant stars as Marcello Clerici, a man so desperate to belong he betrays his soul to authoritarianism. He spies on his former mentor, orders his death, and pretends it is duty. Every frame glows with seductive color, yet beneath the beauty lies horror. Cinematographer Vittorio Storaro painted light like deception, gold for corruption, blue for repression, shadow for truth. The film's surreal compositions were inspired by German Expressionism and American noir, yet they transcended both, becoming pure psychological allegory. When it premiered, Italy's conservatives called it subversive. Some nations tried to ban it, fearing it romanticized fascist aesthetics. Bertolucci countered that he was exposing desire's complicity in tyranny. Behind the scenes, Trintignant struggled to humanize his role, asking Bertolucci if evil could ever feel like love. The director simply said yes, and the performance became hauntingly human. Over time, The Conformist became one of cinema's most studied works, influencing Scorsese, Coppola, and countless others. It taught that style itself can be a mask for guilt. In a world of illusions, Marcello's final line echoes across decades. Sometimes the true villain isn't the system, but the man who obeys it too well. Number 6. The Passenger, 1975. Michelangelo Antonioni's The Passenger isn't a thriller in the conventional sense. It's an existential noir where identity itself becomes the crime. Jack Nicholson plays David Locke, a weary television journalist covering political unrest in North Africa. When he discovers a dead man in his hotel room, he does something unthinkable. He switches passports and assumes the stranger's life. At first, it feels liberating. He escapes his failures and career exhaustion, but soon discovers he has inherited something far darker. The man whose life he stole was an arms dealer entangled in revolution and betrayal. Antonioni unfolds the story with glacial patience, where every pause and silence tightens the noose. Critics at the time were baffled. Audiences expecting a typical Nicholson performance found instead a quiet meditation on identity and truth. Some European distributors refused full release, claiming the pacing was too oppressive and too political. Behind the scenes, Nicholson fought with Antonioni over direction, but later called the film one of his proudest works because it risked being misunderstood. The film's legendary 6-minute tracking shot near the finale, where the camera glides from Locke's window into the dusty courtyard, remains one of cinema's most haunting metaphors for confinement and escape. Over time, it became revered as a masterpiece of existential noir. The Passenger shows that in a world where truth is fluid and politics corrupts everything, sometimes the only crime left is wanting to disappear. Number 5. The Night Porter, 1974. Lilian Cavani's The Night Porter divided Europe like few films before or after. Set in Vienna in the 1950s, it follows a former concentration camp officer and his survivor meeting again by chance years later. What unfolds is not redemption, but a fevered power struggle between memory and guilt, two souls forever locked in the machinery of shame. The film shocked audiences and critics alike. Many saw it as blasphemous, others as brutally honest. It was banned in several countries, including Australia and parts of the United States, condemned by church groups and moral watchdogs. Yet beneath its surface provocation, Cavani's film asked an unbearable question. Can trauma ever be resolved, or does it only mutate into obsession? Behind the camera, the tension was relentless. Dirk Bogarde, who played the officer, was known for his quiet dignity, but the script forced him into darkness he had never faced before. Charlotte Rampling, still in her 20s, brought a vulnerability that frightened even her director. The set atmosphere was grim rehearsals, long and silent. For years, critics dismissed it as exploitation. But modern reevaluations see The Night Porter as one of Europe's most courageous examinations of post-war guilt. Its foggy corridors and muted colors evoke a world where every love is poisoned by history and every silence hides complicity. It remains one of cinema's most disturbing reflections on how the past never truly dies. It just changes costumes. Number 4. The Serpent's Egg, 1977. Ingmar Bergman's only English-language German production. The Serpent's Egg is a film that bleeds paranoia from its first frame, set in 1920s. Berlin during the rise of fascism, it follows an American circus performer played by David Carradine who discovers a secret government experiment in human despair. The city feels diseased. Neon lights flicker over starvation. Corpses vanish from the streets. Scientists record suicides as data. Bergman transforms Weimar decay into prophetic nightmare, an autopsy of a civilization about to surrender to totalitarianism. Critics at the time called it grim, excessive, even self-indulgent. Yet it was Bergman's cry of warning after his own exile from Sweden for alleged tax evasion, a wound that shadowed his creativity. The film was co-produced by Dino De Laurentiis, who expected a political thriller, but received an abstract descent into madness. It flopped commercially its budget, collapsing under studio interference. German authorities also criticized it for national defamation, accusing Bergman of using Germany as metaphorical hell. But he refused to apologize. The film is about Europe's soul, he said. Today, The Serpent's Egg stands as one of Bergman's most misunderstood yet terrifyingly relevant works. It foreshadows a world where experiments on despair have become normalized through bureaucracy and propaganda. It is not entertainment, but prophecy. A reminder that tyranny begins quietly as data collected in secret and fear disguised as order. Number 3. The Confession, 1970. Costa Gavris's The Confession is not merely a political thriller. It is an indictment of blind ideology and the terror of truth twisted into obedience. Based on the true story of Artur London, a Czech diplomat and communist loyalist who was falsely accused of treason during the Stalinist purges, this film turns paranoia into poetry. Yves Montand delivers a haunting performance as Gerard, a party official kidnapped and tortured by his own comrades until he confesses to crimes that never existed. The film unfolds in dim cells and interrogation rooms, each shot framed like a moral crucifixion. Costa Gavras, who had already shaken the world with Z, stripped away all glamour to reveal bureaucracy as nightmare, the kind of horror that hides behind paperwork, loyalty, and slogans. During production, Montand nearly suffered a nervous breakdown. He lost weight drastically, insisting on realism in the torture sequences. Simone Signoret, his real-life wife who played his on-screen spouse, often wept between takes, unable to watch. The director pushed the cast into emotional exhaustion to evoke the psychological suffocation of totalitarian justice. The film was banned in several Eastern Bloc nations immediately after release. Czechoslovakia's government condemned it as anti-socialist propaganda, but Western critics recognized it as one of the bravest films of its time. At Cannes, it received long-standing ovations for exposing the betrayal of revolution by its own ideals. The Confession endures as a cinematic warning that even the most righteous movements can rot from within when truth becomes negotiable. It remains one of Europe's most searing portraits of moral collapse, where the enemy is not outside the walls but sitting comfortably behind them. In Costa Gavras's shadowed frames, we witness the death of conviction and the birth of something colder: obedience without belief. Number 2. Knife in the Water, 1962. Roman Polanski's debut feature Knife in the Water changed the course of European cinema forever. Set almost entirely on a small sailboat adrift in a Polish lake, the film is a masterclass in tension suggestion and psychological violence. Three characters, a wealthy couple and a mysterious hitchhiker, begin a seemingly innocent day trip that descends into jealousy, humiliation, and primal dominance. The genius lies in what Polanski never shows. No murder, no confession, just silence so thick it becomes a weapon. The wind and water replace dialogue. Every movement of the boat feels like a heartbeat edging toward violence. Critics compared it to Hitchcock, yet found it even colder. Beneath its minimalism lies an allegory of class control and repressed rage within a society pretending at harmony. When the film premiered, the Polish government was uneasy. They accused Polanski of portraying post-war Poland as morally adrift. The Communist Party delayed its international release, fearing it would reflect internal instability. But word spread fast through European film circles. It earned an Academy Award nomination for Best Foreign Language Film, Poland's first ever, and transformed Polanski overnight from student rebel to auteur. Behind-the-scenes conditions were brutal. The crew shot for weeks on freezing water. Actors performed without doubles, often drenched for hours. Polanski clashed with state censors, who demanded a new ending where justice prevailed. He refused, saying the film's power came from uncertainty. Decades later, Knife in the Water remains one of the purest expressions of noir psychology. Its claustrophobic intimacy and moral ambiguity inspired countless filmmakers, from Bergman to Kieślowski. It is a story where nothing happens, yet everything breaks. A quiet voyage into the storm of human ego, proof that true danger needs no weapons, only pride and silence. Number 1. The Lives of Others, 2006. If noir is about guilt, The Lives of Others may be its modern perfection. Set in 1980s, East Berlin, it follows Gerd Wiesler, a Stasi officer assigned to spy on a playwright and his lover. What begins as routine surveillance becomes moral rebirth as Wiesler's empathy quietly destroys his allegiance to the regime. Florian Henkel von Donnersmarck's direction turned totalitarian surveillance into an opera of emotion. Every sound, every pause carries weight. The gray interiors, the tapping of typewriter keys, and the crackling of wiretaps create an atmosphere both suffocating and sacred. Actor Ulrich Mühe himself, once monitored by the Stasi, delivers a performance so hauntingly restrained it feels like confession rather than acting. The East German government archives later revealed that the film's accuracy in depicting state control was disturbingly real. Some ex-Stasi officers tried to discredit it, calling it melodramatic. But audiences across Europe saw truth in every frame. The film swept the Academy Awards, winning Best Foreign Language Film, and reignited discussion about how surveillance dehumanizes both victim and enforcer. Behind the scenes, Mühe was dying of cancer during promotion. He said the role gave him peace through pain, understanding at last the cost of obedience. Critics compared the film to Kafka and Orwell, but its true power lies in quiet compassion. In the final scene, Wiesler buys the author's new book dedicated simply to HGWXX7. His silence becomes absolution. The Lives of Others remains a spiritual descendant of European noir, a story of redemption born from guilt, humanity salvaged from machinery, and conscience awakened too late. It closes the circle begun by The Third Man, proving that the moral fog of Europe never lifted it, only changed its language and uniform. Across decades and borders, these films whisper the same truth. Every civilization hides its crimes in the shadows of its conscience. From bombed-out Vienna to cold Berlin, noir remains Europe's confession booth. Which of these stories stayed with you the most? Share your thoughts below, and remember to like, subscribe, and join us next time as we unearth more cinematic ghosts.